So next, I'll introduce our guest, Glenn Haussman. So Glenn Haussman is the host of the #1 podcast in hospitality. Me meeting Glenn was me being outgoing on LinkedIn. I think one year I just started messaging him because I listened to his podcast. Hey, we want to meet up, and just out of nowhere, I met him in Vegas at the Venetian. Talked a little bit. One thing Glenn asked me when we were there, I don't remember much about the conversation. It was 3 years ago.
I know, it was good.
Yeah, the beer was good. That's okay. Yeah. And he asked me, I was telling him about how I worked with Radisson and HSMAI, and he said, so do you think you're an expert at what you do? And I kind of said, you know, I don't ever think of it as an expert. I just think I'm always learning. And I think that's part of what HSMAI does. You always need to be learning, whether you're an expert at what you do or you're just starting out at what you're doing. Continue to be learning at what you're doing here. So with that, I'll turn it over to Glenn and we'll talk.
Awesome. Hey guys, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. As you know, I'm Glenn. I do No Vacancy Live. I also do a Friday night show, which we focus on cocktails and comedy and stuff like that, called Friday Night Audit, 4 o'clock your time. If you ever want to get your drink on with us, we'd love to have you join the audience over there. Also do a design show and a tech show. And I'm very fortunate enough to be out and about again, doing a lot of conversations and speeches in front of groups and moderating panels. Just last week, I had the pleasure to go to the IHG's annual conference and interview CEO Keith Barr and America's CEO Early Maloof on stage, which was a lot of fun. So the whole point of me saying all of that is I'm very in touch with what's going on in hospitality. I'm in a unique position and a very fortunate position because I get to hear from the brightest minds in hospitality every day and then plot off all their ideas as my own. So how awesome is that, right? So today I could talk, but I really want to try to address what you guys are asking. So I'd love to do this more of an interactive kind of a format. What are the issues that are on your minds? And then we can kind of chat them out together, and I can tell you what I've learned on the road, what my experience is saying, and all of that kind of good stuff. But before we do that, because I want to give you guys a chance to think of the first topic or two, I do want to say I think the hospitality industry has made tremendous strides when it comes to human trafficking over the past 5 years or so. 5, 6 years ago, we weren't even having the conversation. And groups like the HOA and the HLA have really done a great job at bringing it to the fore. So now we're all talking about it. It's all on the top of our minds. Some of the things that I've seen that I think are really helpful. I've been in public bathrooms in hotels, and they say if you're experiencing this, call this number, or maybe go to the front desk, use a particular code word or something like that. Just things to give people who might have that 1 second alone the ability to make connections with people at the hotel to do something. So that's just a couple of observations I've seen on the property level. Also, from all the stories I've heard, it can happen anywhere, from luxury hotels down to the economy hotels where we really believe or are prejudiced to believe that that's the only place it's happening. But it happens absolutely everywhere. So we all just have to remain vigilant and think as we go on. All right, so what is the #1 issue that's affecting all of you out there today, right now?
Well, it's definitely not staffing.
No, definitely not. It's a good thing too, because it would really be hard if everybody's leaving the hospitality industry. And you're right. Labor is the big issue that we're dealing with. A lot of people don't want to go into hospitality these days, and a lot of people in hospitality are leaving hospitality. And just amongst us friends, I have to lay a lot of the blame on the owners out there. Over the years, they took labor for granted. They didn't put a lot of value on it. They looked at people as bodies and not members of the team. Although a lot of companies gave that, said, we are a family. We are all in it together. We're always going to be on your side. Oh, what? Crisis? Okay, sorry, we got to let you guys all go. And that really hurt the hospitality's ability to attract good labor, I think. All these promises were made, and the second a major crisis hit, all of these people were shed. They were let go. They were treated as if they meant nothing at all. And the psychological wounds from that go very deep. Even though those people that did come back, a lot of times are harboring resentment about it. And I think that is what is partially leading to people leaving to go to other hotels for, we see it in housekeeping, a quarter more per hour, right? Because they don't feel loved, they don't feel appreciated. And I think if we're really going to make strides in hospitality and get people engaged in labor again, we need to make them feel loved. We need to actually make them feel part of the family, and we need to meet them where their needs are. We've been talking a lot on No Vacancy Live about how to solve this issue. One of the things that comes up is flexible scheduling, right? I just heard a story at the IHG conference last week where a general manager was able to make a half-hour shift in someone's schedule. They could come in at 7:30 instead of 7, and it changed absolutely everything for that individual. That woman now could get their kids to school. They wouldn't have to pay anybody to do that in the morning, and it just brought a better quality of life, right? One of the things that I always noticed when I was coming up through the years is you have to work these hours because that's what we all do. And I never understood that philosophy, because in the journalism world that I was in, if I got in early and I got all my work done, why do I have to sit around at 10 for the next 3 hours that I'm working just so the boss can see me and I can be there when they leave, right? None of that made any sense to me. The property level, people, you could get more people working fewer hours if you need to, if you treat them right and let them have that flexibility of schedule. I'm seeing an idea out there where the management company has hotels within the same region. They share employees. Maybe if it's a little quieter here, you can go to that place over there. You can get those extra hours. You can find a way to advance your career quicker. And that's one of the messages that I would share with people as well. That it's a great, phenomenal career, that you could really go much further quicker than when people my age were starting their careers, for example. My partner on the No Vacancy Live podcast, Anthony Melchiori, he came up working at the property level. It took years and years and years and years and years and years for him to be a general manager. My producer, he books all of our guests on No Vacancy Live. He started in revenue management in March 2021 at the Even Hotel Midtown East, and last month was made general manager. Sure, most of that was because everybody quit above him and they had no one to go to. But the point is, there's still a lot of great opportunity out there to have a fulfilling career. Additionally, in that labor issue, I am seeing companies start to wake up in a real, true way to value their employees. There's a company out there called Humanist Hospitality, and all of their employees are in a profit sharing program. They're putting their money where their mouth is. They're showing that we actually care. Remington just bought Chesapeake Hospitality. Those are two companies that really put high emphasis on culture, and they're very, very genuine people. And you can see that these CEOs, the love that comes out for their employees, and how people on the staff, no matter what crisis they have, they're looked as family, not just that body that's out there. Anything else you guys want to know about labor and stuff like that?
Just one curious
Yes.
question on that. There's a lot of unions, right, in
Right.
hotels. So how does that work if you have a group of hotels and you want to share?
You should,
hotels
at this
do that?
point, it maybe not New York City,
Right.
but a lot of cities are starting to wake up to this. They want to keep their union members employed. I think there's a good argument to be made to them that it's actually helping keep people employed because we can't get X, Y, Z positions filled. Let's give your members more money and opportunity to grow and earn higher wages in the future. I think it's important to talk a little bit about technology when it comes to labor as well. I'm a big believer that it's very possible that the last person standing in the hotel is going to be the front desk clerk / bartender, right? But I'm worried about that as well. But there is an opportunity for us to utilize technology for good, not for consumer evil, right? On the good side, I mean, enhancing all of your back end operations, the stuff that doesn't affect the direct guest fee in your face, that allows you to sort of alleviate some of those staffing issues. I'm seeing housekeeping departments, new companies come in and just run housekeeping, so you don't have to have a headache in that. In fact, a little aside, I'm in this organization called Scala. I'm also on the Long Island Hospitality Association board. I work with a guy there, Mark Ergang. He's opening up a full service Marriott at JFK in the next couple of months. Should have opened up a long time ago. I'll just say supply chain issues. They couldn't get some windows. It's been a nightmare for them. But in this time, because the labor issue really started to develop, they started to look at staffing their hotel in a very different way. So they're basically, same thing over at Virgin in Vegas, as a matter of fact. They're like leasing out everything. They're just doing deals to have all the F&B outsourced. The housekeeping company comes in and they're going to do it. All the different companies are coming in. So he's going to be more of a manager of different companies as opposed to managing a lot of individuals. I thought that was really interesting. I see a company out there called Dishcraft. They'll come in, they'll bring you all clean plates, take away all the dirty ones and stuff like that. How cool is that? So you don't have to worry about any of that stuff. You don't even have to store much of it on property. They bring it in for your banquet, and then they take all the dirty stuff away, and you get new clean stuff for your next event. So there's a lot of interesting solutions that are out there that I think are going to be really helpful in alleviating that labor issue behind the scenes, the back of the house, that are going to give us more opportunity if we use the power for good and not to be customer evil and utilize good, more front-facing positions, right? I contend that that human element of the hotel is the most essential thing that we have. This is a great, beautiful hotel. I like being here, but if it wasn't for the amazing people that I'm interacting with, this would be a truly forgettable experience. Not for any reason of the hotel itself. It's a perfectly good hotel, but we're at the point now, 98% of everything is really amazing in our business, right? And the experiences can almost become fungible. I could have stayed here. I could have stayed at another major brand, for example, and I would have had an equal experience. One thing that's not equal are the amazing people that allow me to remember and engage with the property. So I'm going to go home and I'm going to say, I had the most amazing conversation with so-and-so at the front desk. It was great. I'm not going to go back and say, you know, I really like that lamp in the room. You guys got to go check out this hotel, right? It always comes back to the people. So in the end, if we're going to get through this labor crisis, we have to rethink how we're utilizing labor, how we can alleviate that stress back of house and repurpose what we do have for great front of house interactions that create that loyalty and the customer engagement that will allow you guys to charge higher rates for it. So that's kind of how I see the whole labor issue out there. What's next? What's the next big issue?
Inflation.
What's that?
Inflation.
Inflation. But inflation is really an interesting thing. I think when it comes to where we're pricing hotels, I think come September, we're going to hit the leisure customers limit. They're going to be done with their pent up demand, right? So I do have worries that continuing escalating prices are going to affect our ability to be profitable in the future. The issue that I see out there is what is that gap going to be, right? How much money is there going to be in between what we charge and how much things are going up in price in order to fulfill that? And there's a lot of ways that I'm learning that we might be able to combat that. Number one, I see a great opportunity for more American manufacturing, right? We're starting to see a resurgence in that. If we could really have it come back in a true, meaningful way, then I think that's going to help combat that inflationary pressures that are out there. So, sorry, I fell, guys.
Too much drinking.
I'm making sure they can see you, hear you more than anything. There you go.
Also, interestingly enough, I was thinking about inflation in terms of hotel development, right? So I never thought about this in 25 years I've been in the business, but when we see high rates of inflation, does that actually stop developers from developing? That's a number of executives out there, and it seems that the consensus is no. The answer that I keep getting from multiple people is it might cost more to get the loan for the hotel, to build a hotel. However, the escalating prices the escalating interest rates kind of tamp down that inflation. So theoretically, we'll see building costs kind of drop. It won't cost as much overall to build a hotel, and that should make up the difference in between. Theoretically, that's what people are telling me. So take that for what it is. One other thing with inflation and crazy gas prices, one thing I've never understood in my entire career is who is not going to take a family vacation because gas went up another $50 for your entire trip? That never made sense to me. I think it's one of those things in group think that we've all just hear so much we tend to believe is true without any critical thinking behind it. I do believe it affects trips. Maybe they won't go as far. Maybe they'll just stay closer to home. We can still see the same amount of people traveling. They just might not go as far, and they might not go to that one fancy meal, right? Or they might actually stay at a hotel that's a tier lower.
than they were originally considering. However, I still think they're going to be out there. They're going to be out there in mass, and it's going to be a huge summer for everybody. But come September, that's when I would be worried. Are you guys seeing good group bookings at all for the fall at this point? Yeah? Good. I'm really hoping that that continues because I think that's going to be our savior. The groups, I think, are going to start to come back in a more meaningful way, albeit maybe a different way in the fall. Because right now we're seeing, I think, a turn of the way people are working, right? You know, everyone's saying about the Great Resignation, nobody's coming to the offices anymore. But I think that this opens up amazing opportunity for hoteliers out there to capitalize on some of the rising trends in the marketplace, right? Everybody talked about that digital nomad for years and then thought it was going away. Now we're all doubling down on it because people are untethered from the office. So you have the opportunity for those single travelers traveling anywhere around the world to experience what, you know, your hometown, for example, your communities for a longer, more meaningful stay. But additionally, as major companies shed their office spaces, they're still going to need to have meetings, right? I was just talking today, I don't know if you guys familiar with Skift, right?
Yep.
I just recorded at 1 o'clock today with Rafat Ali, the CEO over at Skift. We were talking about tech in the future and got onto this particular topic. And the interesting observations that we're both making around this subject is the wholesale change of how people are going to meet in the office. He was saying, in his company, 2/3 of the budget for T&E was for external purposes. Now they're talking, because they closed offices in London and Singapore, and people are working from home instead, that now they're going to shift that money, for example, and he's seeing this in a lot of companies as well, to internal type meetings, right? So there's great opportunity for like this hotel in particular to start approaching those companies that might no longer have that office space, but still need to get together for occasional meetings to create great programs to bring that team together and make them more productive. So as group meetings change, I think we're going to start to see a lot more of this. My understanding also, according to Nolan, is that while the bigger meetings have suffered, the smaller meetings, like the sweet spot, I think the meetings that you guys get is really on the rise. So smaller, more meaningful meetings, but those smaller meetings are actually trending up in size, right? I'm making up this number where they might have had 53 people at an average meeting, it might be 58, 59 now. So there is a little bit more opportunity at that level. I was at an IHG meeting with 5,000 people last week. I didn't expect to see 5,000 plus people at an event, but those events are coming back. I just don't think they're going to be as frequent. I do think there's going to be fewer events. A lot of companies kind of in the events business have to rethink things. And honestly, we've got too many events in the hotel business, for example. So if a few of them went away, I probably wouldn't miss them. I feel badly for the hoteliers not profiting off of them anymore, but it's really exhausting going to so many events all the time. And I think as we start to live and learn and want to work in very different ways, we're going to be a little bit more judicious about the events we go to, even as we still want to travel as much, just do trips a little bit differently. I'm not going to say the B word because I know it's all offensive out there, but we will be mixing our work life with our personal lives in a more meaningful way on the road, right? Do you guys think that makes sense, or am I just full of BS like my family thinks I am? Anyone? Makes sense. Yeah? What's that? Yeah. You're going to have a question, sir.
So the yucky guests out there in the world are one of the things that I think are a problem for everybody. I don't work at a hotel, but I work for a company, and we hear about it all the time. I mean, people feel they've been bottled up.
Yep.
They've got all this pent up feeling inside, and then the gas went up $50, and so they, you know, instead of just being pissed that their flight was canceled, they're pissed because they showed up at the last exit. And now they're checking into your hotel, and there's 2 people in front of them, and they're mad at the front desk person.
How dare you have other customers?
So, and how do we as an industry deal with that? Because who are these people that they're mad at us all the time? We didn't do anything to them.
Right.
And you know what the rate is higher? You chose it.
Right. They did choose it, but we are way past the time of consumer forgiveness. Summer of 2020 we're gonna look back at the halcyon ages, because you could do no wrong as a hotelier, right? No matter what limitations were in place, the guests that you did have were just so freaking happy to be out, it didn't matter. Summer 2021, I started to see a shift, a change that was happening. As everything started to get more expensive, and as we all start to get even more batshit crazy by being locked up and our lives being upended, right? It's become more difficult. I don't know about you all, but I'm exhausted emotionally from the last 2 years. We just had on Aaron Berman, who's with the National Institute of Health, on our show a week ago. And I opened up a lot because I think it's important for us to talk about these mental health issues, about how we're all suffering. You know, I use me as an example, being locked up in March 2020, almost losing my business, having to build it back up, and, you know, and it's just exhausting. I don't feel like I've been through a traumatic event, but maybe I have been through a traumatic event. I have a way of, no matter whatever happens to me, discounting the emotions and feelings. You know, I have to thank my old world European grandparents and parents for that sort of a thing. But the truth is, we're all suffering, your customers included. And we're all, not necessarily all of us, but a lot of us aren't handling it in a way that comes out as polite. We all are freaking out. And our attention spans are short, our patience levels are even shorter, and it's causing a lot of conflict. For me, the conflict that I'm seeing out there is, as people are paying more than they've ever paid in a lot of cases for hotels, their expectations are they should be there. And they don't give an F that you're short-staffed, that you can't provide this service or that service. They have had enough. They have been denied long enough. And if they're spending this money, they want everything to be absolutely perfect and beyond. Not necessarily realistic, right? But that is where we are at right now. My favorite airline, maybe becoming former favorite airline, because they're sucking it up out there, our friends over at Delta, I'm finding in JFK, their service is completely imploded. And the amount of money I'm paying for flights is probably twice as much as it was pre-pandemic right now. So when I land at JFK for the 5th freaking time in a row, they don't have a gate open. They know the plane is coming, and then they can't find somebody to open the aircraft door, and then they can't find somebody to deliver our luggage. It starts to get really frustrating after a while. And more people are starting to get angry in general and lash out. And you guys are going to be the victims of it, because you are the face of hospitality. You are not the ones that are typically, you know, up in the ivory towers pretending everything is okay. So what I would recommend for people that are dealing with this is there needs to be some sort of training on how to deal with people that are angry and frustrated and are having those low moment experiences. I don't know if you guys get trained for that at all, but I haven't really seen it. It's more about, this is how you use the PMS, not necessarily this is how you're dealing with somebody who's really angry because they've been frustrated. I'd love to see how we could help diffuse situations and bring the spirit of love and hospitality back to people. I find sometimes when stuff goes wrong, right? I would argue, not sometimes, but every time something goes terribly wrong in a hotel, if the hotel reacts the proper way and treats it seriously and treats me with kindness, then I can't stop talking about how much I love that hotel. So because things aren't in place doesn't mean it has to be a negative experience all around. Service recovery gives you an opportunity, I think, to even be more successful with guests. So don't feel so bad when you're getting yelled at, even though it feels bad to get yelled at. But let's try to just find ways that we can make our guests realize that, you know, we're all in this together in the spirit of hospitality, even if they're paying more than they've ever paid. Yeah.
So with that, do you think that the pent-up demand is going on this summer,
Yeah.
and they're paying more money, and they might not be getting the trip or the expectations they get for that dollar?
Right.
Are they going to remember that next year when they're picking their vacations for next year? Will they be? You think they'll be less likely to
Right.
go to that
That's
destination?
a great question. And honestly, I think it's going to go either way. It really depends on the individual. I think we've all seen here in the United States of America, people's attention spans are super short. Whatever I'm supposed to be outraged and offended by today, I won't even remember on Thursday, right? So I think we have a tendency to go through these news cycles, and in this case, the news cycle being an experience at a hotel. I do think a large contingent of people will forget. I think that it's too much of an emotional burden to continue to hold on to stuff. And I think that we're so inundated with things that we won't really be affected culturally when it comes to staying in hotels a year from now. Now, if you want to look at the other side of the argument, there are going to be people that will be entirely pissed, but maybe they'll just blow off enough steam yelling at that guy, you know, over there or something like that, and then they'll get over it. But there is an opportunity now to win new customers through great service and kindness and respect, the ones that are pissed off. For example, family went down to Disney World. They came from overseas. I don't remember if it was England or a wider part of the UK or somewhere else in that general vicinity. That's not point of the story. They got there, and Disney World has become so complicated to book that this family came over and they had tickets for theme parks on a specific day, but they didn't have a reservation to get into the theme park. And Disney wouldn't let them in. And these people are like, what the F? I flew thousands of dollars, thousands of miles, and I can't get in to see your stupid theme park. So they posted about it online, right? It was like they were going to a Grateful Dead concert or something. They had a cardboard thing, I need a miracle sign, right? Like a couple of people got that. I would normally use a fish reference, but that's more underground for a lot of people. Okay, so Universal Studios saw that on Twitter and they said, come over to us for free, right? So they leveraged that opportunity to win not just those customers, but a Twitter news cycle, which was a pretty impressive move on those folks over there. So while some companies are resting on their laurels right now and are up in their ivory tower, like I said, thinking they're so amazing and people love us so much, there are other companies out there that realize that they could have hard scrabble earned success by doing the right thing and connecting in a more meaningful way with customers right now. So hopefully that answers your question, or at least gives you some perspective.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next topic. Let's see how much time we have.
Loyalty programs.
What's that?
Hotel loyalty programs.
All right, so this is one thing I always think about hotel loyalty programs. I don't know about you, but if you're in all of these different loyalty programs, are you actually loyal to a company, or are you just loyal to loyalty programs in general? I think it's more of the latter. I think a lot of the hotel companies say that the loyalty thing is the most important thing, but I really think it's more just of a database of information. Unless you're talking about like here, the diamond tier, hotel people, you get their parking spots and all that kind of stuff. I think the vast majority of the population is loyal to general loyalty programs as opposed to a particular brand. I think that there's so many brands that we're supposed to be loyal to now that it's really impossible to be loyal to any but either a few or none at all. If you look at the rise of hotels.com and Expedia and all of that over the last 20 years, I think it's easy to say that people become almost more loyal to those sites and not the hotel brand in particular, right? So it's a lot more challenging for folks out there. That being said, loyalty programs are essential to the marketing efforts of all the hotels, and it's important to continue to sign up those people because those are the table stakes right now. I think for loyalty programs to be more meaningful, they really need to connect with how each of us want to work and live and experience our lives every single day. One major hospitality company that starts with an M started collecting my information in the 1990s. I have yet to see, after all of these decades, one thing that actually sent to me that connects with me with who I am as a human being. By now, they should know I like craft beer. They should know I like sushi. Stop sending me stuff for skiing. I don't ski. I never will ski. And by the way, I also don't care about golf. I care about going to see Phish concerts with my buddies in different cities, right? Why don't they figure that out? They ask me for all this information and they don't turn these things into actionable insights. So if we want to get true loyalty, we really need to connect with our customers in a way that's fundamentally meaningful. And I keep saying that word on purpose throughout this conversation to get them to have some sort of emotional reaction that will tether them to the brand. If we can't do that, if we can't match people where they are already living, then a loyalty program is just a marketing database and doesn't have any true value 10, 20 years from now, because I'm always going to be going for the best experience at the best price, regardless of whatever that particular brand is. Yes.
Non-traditional hospitality, so Verbo, Airbnb.
Yeah, this is interesting about Vrbo and Airbnb and stuff like that. You know, one of the things that I never realized in my 20s and even in my 30s, and I'm 51 now, that you could rent vacation homes. How cool is that? So, but they've always been there. They've always been in the market. It's just that, like the service apartment sector, we're so technologically ancient that it was impossible to connect with those types of properties. So I think once technology really came to the fore and we were able to now make those connections much easier, it woke up a whole lot of the population that wanted to stay in those types of places anyway, right? Plus, in the 2000s, I think we saw a more real move towards multi-generational travel as baby boomers started to get a little bit older, and the greatest generation would take them away, and their kids. Now, you know, I'm Gen X, and you know, the baby boomers are still taking us away in a lot of cases, or then the children, and it's all about being together. And vacation homes and places like that work in a really great way, in ways that the hotel business has not been able to satisfy. The hotel business has been very much about, you will stay in this room whether you like it or not. Finally, Hilton made it so you could get connecting rooms online. No-brainer idea. Why did this happen 20, 30 years ago, right? Marriott's experimenting with like suites that's like 2 or 3 rooms onto a a single space. I love that idea, but it's a little bit late to the party. So what they're doing now, obviously, is they're getting into those kind of business as well. Marriott Vacation Homes, kind of a thing. I think Choice was the first one in it. By the way, props to Choice for being the first one to do soft branding as well. So they're pretty innovative when it comes to introducing new things, and then the big guys kind of come in and take those ideas and master it. So that's one section of it. Section 2, Airbnb. With technology, gave people the ability to rent out their rooms in ways they never did before. I do not connect, generally speaking, with the Airbnb product when it comes to either renting homes or apartments that people live in. I did that once in Puerto Rico, and I thought it was weird sleeping in the daughter's bedroom with the stars on the ceiling and stuff like that. It was a little strange for me, but I think back to when I was 20, and I would not have cared. What a great thing that would have been when I was 20, right? And that's when, my friends were, I guess we were still going to dead shows. We started going to fish shows in like 1991, 92. I was 20, 21 years old, right? And how cool would that have been to have a real low-cost place, because all I cared about was a place to crash at the end of the night. You know, by crash, I mean pass out from all of the consumption, and then get at it the next day. So I didn't care. What I like about Airbnb is not Airbnb specifically, but it introduced me to a company called Sonder, right? Has anyone heard of Sonder over there? What happened was, probably 6 years or so ago, I was going to an event in Boston, and at the time, the Hampton Inn wanted to charge $450 a night or something like that for me to go to a convention in downtown Boston. I needed 2 rooms because I had a producer with me as well, because we were doing a video shoot. So that's $900 a night. We were there for like 4 or 5 nights. It's a lot of money, right? It wasn't my money, but it was still a lot of money. So I found a Sonder equivalent that had rented out the whole building, and basically purchased the whole building. Then I was able to get a 2-bedroom apartment with a meeting space in the middle and a fridge and a kitchen and all, not that we cooked, but it had all of this stuff for half the price of the stay. And my producer and I were able to work together in a way that was right there, not cramped on a big table. And then we could go and have our privacy. And I loved it. And I blame the hotel industry at that point for charging so much money that they basically drove me, one of the most passionate hospitality people on the planet, to a completely different project. Fast forward, that same guy and I were going to a trip in San Diego, and that's when we discovered Sonder. Again, great price, great apartments. I love the model, and it really represented how I wanted to live on that particular trip. So we're seeing a huge shift now in what's happening out there. Products like this are going to come into mind. And I think when we look at Airbnb, we have to look at the different segments and the different psychographics that go behind it. Am I still that 20-year-old kid who just wants to flop on a bed? Or am I now a grandparent who wants to show off this great location and have my whole family around me or anything in between? Now, there's a lot of new concepts that are coming in alternative hospitality now that I think that the big brands are going to be forced into having to think about. That's a new segment that goes beyond extended stay, it goes beyond service apartments, and we're starting, Mint House is calling it residential hospitality. I love that term because it really represents how we want to live and experience travel at the same time under a lot of circumstances. A little different than if I want to go to a beach in Hawaii. I'm not talking about that type of trip. But if I'm in a city, how awesome is it to have an apartment in the middle of the city that affords me a lot more space for about the same type of price? And owners are finding it to be very profitable for them as well. And by owners, I mean apartment building owners that could give up like just one floor or 2 floors or whatever it would be. At Mint House, they were so successful on their 2 floors, they're now getting 2 more floors of this building in order to build it out. But the thing that really makes it stand out is you've got a living room, you've got a bedroom, I've got the kitchen, I got a full kitchen and a big table to spread out on. I had 2 bathrooms in the unit that I happened to be in. It's pretty big. It just happened to be a pretty big apartment. Nice TV, record player, but it's very focused on technology. Everything through the app and the phone. Soon you're going to be able to control everything in the room on it. It's a company, sorry to make it separate, but it's a company called Co-Host out there, K-O-H-O-S-T, that's doing this really well. Everything's on your phone, so I can control everything in my room on the phone from arriving at the airport and they're like, oh, you've arrived at the airport. Why don't you check in, to being my room key, to changing the lights, the temperature, everything you could imagine. And that's what these residential hospitality companies are starting to do. They're trying to behave in the way that we live when we're outside of the hospitality environment and are in our own home. So I see a lot of great ideas coming out there. Right now, all the big brands are fixated on extended stay. It was coming up, but then the COVID crisis really got it on everybody's mind about how important it is, and everybody's dumping a lot of money into that segment. So I think 1/3 of the new construction pipeline right now is in the extended stay thing, but in a lot of cases, that's great, but I do think they're missing the boat. I already think we're beyond it. I think we're getting to this residential hospitality thing, and it's going to take the brands 4 or 5 years before they completely understand it and figure out a way to leverage this particular trend. But right now, Lifehouse, Mint House, other companies like that, maybe some that don't have the word house in them, are going to arrive, and we're going to see a lot more of those. How do you feel about alternative hospitality?
I think it has its place, for sure. It's a different experience. And I think, it can go both ways. I like being in a hotel because everything is
That's right.
cleaned and, it's a very singular experience. If I'm traveling with a group, or I'm seeking maybe a little bit of a different experience, I would be more than willing to stay, in an Airbnb or something like that.
Right. But it is interesting because you're like everybody else. But one of the things that I find in hospitality is that the people making all the big decisions don't mimic those decisions in the way that you and I and probably them are living their lives, which I find very strange and suspect. And so there are times I want to stay in a residential hospitality. There are times I want to stay in extended stay. There are times I want to stay in this beautiful hotel, right? Because they all have a specific purpose for a different trip, which takes us back to the hotel companies needing to understand what the purpose of my trips are and figure out that mechanism in order to pair me up with the right product at the right price, providing the right experience. So I will continue to love them and come back time and time again and covet my home diamond status, right?
So, a question on that one. I was going to mention earlier when you started talking about the big brands, about how many logos we have under every brand.
That's right.
Just seems so overwhelming. Then we go over to this alternative accommodations. Then we go to the house companies that have home in the name. So how do we get this so that it's not so overwhelming to shop for, or do we Just any comments?
Well, great question. First comment I had is I fantasize, and will never do this, but I fantasize about being on stage with one of the top CEOs in the industry and going, name your brands, go! And see if they can name all of those brands. I don't think they can do it, right? So, and I see this all the time. They don't, a lot of the CEOs don't know how many units they have in each of the brands. They don't necessarily know all the brands on top of their head. So if they can't do it, how is a customer supposed to do it? I'd say the trend came in about 10 years ago to add by Hilton or by Marriott at the end of everything. But there's so much brand overload right now. I believe pre-pandemic, it was something over 100 months. There was at least one brand being introduced per month. So it's impossible for all of us to be able to know all the brands. That's why I said, part of the reason why I said earlier, either we become fans of a few brands because it's all we can focus on, or we're brand agnostic and just focus on the right price at the right time for the right experience.
Because at one point in time, with basic revenue management, you could just look at the price point and understand kind of what you're getting. Right. And now it's like all over the place.
It's all over the place. And, you know, not to keep bashing Disney, but I'm going to bash Disney again for their value hotels, right? The all-star resort and stuff like that, exterior corridor properties. They've been charging $700, $800 a night for some of those rooms at certain periods of time. There's nothing that would make me happy about staying any of those rooms for $800 a night when they were originally like $90 a night when they opened. Yeah, you know, it's been some times gone by, but it should be no more than $200 a night from my perspective as a consumer. And again, not to beat a dead horse, but my fear is a lot of these brands out there are going for the quick buck. And unless we do have that short attention span, people are going to remember, and then they might not come back. I don't think hotels are in danger, but I think companies like Disney are in danger because when you're spending 10, 15 grand on that big vacation and you feel like you're being nickel and dimed and you can't do the stuff that you want to do and you have to work so hard, I think companies like that are going to have a lot more trouble than if you charge an extra couple of $100 for a nice, a nice hotel in a good location. Yeah.
What about like direct bookings and finding the right information?
Look, the hotel industry has done a great job at getting people to book direct. I think Hilton started with the Book Direct campaign and the hotel industry got behind it in general. So I think we've done a good job with that. I also feel like a lot, I don't know, anecdotally, I don't know this for a fact, but it seems like a lot of the major third-party reservation companies kind of disappeared there for a while, and their ads aren't the same, and they're not as in my face all the time, right? Speedy was spending like $1 billion a year on ads or something like that. All the major hotel companies combined don't spend that kind of money, so it's really, really hard in that particular instance to keep, winning the business if you're a hotel company out there. I think I drifted a little bit on that one, so sorry. I apologize. What was the other part of your question? I don't know if I
pretty much
answered
answered it, just the oversaturation of logos and keeping it clear what's the alternative accommodation.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see where people settle on this and how the brands continue to reinvent themselves and the power play that's emerging between ownership groups, individual owners, groups like AHOA, and all the major brands that are continuing to push pips down owners' throats that they feel is a little too onerous, right? I find sometimes the major brands worry so much about a sign that's out front and what the sign is exactly supposed to look like, as opposed to setting the stage for winning experiences and things that guests are actually gonna imbue in themselves when they go home, and that they'll share with the family and friends. Goes back to what I said about the land. No one's gonna say, oh, that sign is a little weird when they get home, that kind of thing. What's next? Next question.
Domestic versus international travel, where do you see things going? I always say that most of us in this room benefited from the fact that you couldn't go straight to the airport and go to London.
Hell yeah, and you have, right? And the numbers are there. According to Cleveland Labs, that is exactly what's happened over the last couple of years. Anecdotally speaking, you're looking at one of them right here. Wanted so badly to go to Japan, summer 2020, we were planning the trip in fall 2019. Obviously, didn't happen. Tried to go to Mexico last summer. First, we were going to try Japan, it was closed, and we're like, all right, forget about it. Then we were going to go to Mexico, right? And we realized that my kids' SATs were like a week after. God forbid one of us got sick or something happened, we decided not to go. So we spent our money here in the United States. And I'm seeing it time and time again. Flash forward this summer, Japan may be reopening, but we're going to Hawaii, right? So I think there is a lot of opportunity and a lot of thoughts that people are going to stay domestically for a while and not travel internationally. Plus, again, anecdotally, what I'm seeing out there is people aren't wanting to go to Europe because of the Ukraine situation, for example, right? So while you'll still see some people doing certain trips, I think it's just easier to hop in a car and go to a resort within a tank of gas from your house than anything else. And I think it's about the path of least resistance right now for a while. Yeah.
How much that you trip that testing requirement to get back in, people not wanting to be stuck?
Yeah, seriously. I was thankfully last September, I had an amazing speaking gig in Canada for the Alberta Hotel and Lodging Association, right? But if I didn't have it, I would never have gone. I had to get, this was so crazy. I have a test, obviously, within 72 hours, but they don't make it clear. They don't say you have to get tested within 72 hours. They say you have to have a test. They word it in such a way that I thought I had the results within 72 hours, right? So I got the test too early. Then I had to go get a second test, and CVS just disappeared on me. I don't know what the hell happened to them. Then the day before, I had to go find a place to go get same day tests. So I had to take 3 tests. Then I had to download the Can Arrive app, right? Fill out all of this paperwork, do all of this stuff. Then I had to go to the airport and show them my printout that I did this, that, and the other thing. Then once I checked in, I had to show it again. And the hassle was so much. And then, of course, I don't know if any of you gone to Canada, but those are the most hardcore border patrol people in the entire world. I found it easier to get into China than Canada. Like, why do you hate me so much? You don't know me yet. Wait till we've had a beer, then hate me. Right? So it's insane. Like, I actually prepared what I was going to say ahead of time and rehearsed it so I wouldn't slip up and have them give me a dirty eye. Because so many people I know get pulled into the back room, right? When it comes to Canada. But I think they were happy to see me. But it was such a hassle that why would I do it again, right? So I think the hassle factor going forward is so important to think about when it comes to get to winning those guests, making it easy on people. We're burdened by so much every single day. It's crazy. I just learned that in medieval times, serfs and stuff like that only worked about 150 days a year, right? We think about how terrible their lives were supposedly, but they did their tilling in the fields, but then they got to hang out and gamble and drink and party for more than half the year, right? I mean, I do the same thing too because I'm in Vegas so much, but that's a story another day. But think about it. We work so hard and our lives have become so much complicated, so much more complicated. Technology was supposed to make our lives easier. It's made it so much harder. I think about shows back in the day that you wouldn't know, like Leave It to Beaver and stuff like that. Dad would come home from the office at 5:30, and I'm not saying life was better in the 1950s. I'm just saying it was different. In this way, it may have been better. And the office didn't call you. You were home, right? You went, you had your 3-martini lunch. I don't know how the hell they did that. They came home, they drank some more, they smoked a cigar, they had a nice quiet evening at home, and then went back to the office, right? My life is, I wake up at 6 in the morning, I gotta feed the kids, I gotta take them to school, I gotta make sure that everybody's taken care of, because when I'm not home, the burden falls on my wife. So I handle that when I'm home. And I gotta come home and I gotta be plugged in all day. I've gotta update my website. I've gotta have conference calls. I've gotta record content. I gotta do a live show. Then I've gotta do this, that, the other thing. God forbid, I wanna get some exercise in. On top of that, I'm trying to be a little bit better to myself in that regard. And then I gotta go to the supermarket and make dinner and all of this. So my life is just complicated. So what are we doing in hospitality overall to make our people's lives easier? Again, the path of least resistance, it's just part of physics. That's just the way it is. That's the way things are going to go. That's the way water flows. That's the way our life flows. That's the way hotels should flow in terms of winning the love from their guests as well. Anyone else? Next question?
Say, what do you think about IBT trends, business travel, individual business travel? So when we think about, we know that there's so many people that are working remotely at this point.
Yep.
to what extent do you think that we're gonna get back towards, or halfway back to pre-pandemic in general, or not even?
All right, it's hard to say specifically, but I think part of it goes back to what I was saying, people working and living differently. And the first part of that, I talked a little bit about, there's an opportunity to bring people together that are working remotely, that aren't in the office all the time for more, meaningful meetings and that sort of thing. Now, though it's been in place for the last 20, 30 years, that digital nomad, during the pandemic, everybody was trying to say, Glenn, that's going away, that's never gonna happen. I'm like, no way, I'm doubling down on it. Digital nomads are the way of the future. And now, we're seeing, I think, that really come to light right now. People are living and working differently on that white collar level. Obviously, it's very different if you work in a hotel, you work in a firehouse, you're in a police department, you're a nurse, you can be a traveling nurse, that sort of thing. But in the white collar world, in the world of everybody's got an Etsy store, right? In a world where we have internet and we connect anywhere in the world, the younger generation in particular doesn't feel that they have to follow the same societal rules as we did. It never occurred to me that I wouldn't get a house and get married and have 2.3 kids and some cats and all of that kind of stuff, right? My kids, it's very different for them. They don't feel obligated to get married and go down that same path. They don't feel obligated to invest in that home with the white picket fence simply because that's what has been told to us by society that we're supposed to do. They're on to the fact that a lot of this universe that's out here is a great big scam meant to just extract cash from us and make us worker drones and not live our lives the way that we want to live our lives, right? So I think this younger generation, the ones that are smart, the ones that can code from anywhere in the world, the ones that have that Etsy store, those YouTubers, a lot of other professions out there, they can go and they can live and work and dream and be wherever they want in the world. And that's where here with great hospitality, you have a real good chance to win. But hotels have to behave a little bit differently. They need to make sure that you create an environment that sets people up for success. And I think without consciously knowing it, that's kind of what's happening with these activated lobbies that are out there, places we can be alone together. But I think we need to take it another step and figure out how to make that co-working kind of the we work thing before they went bust kind of vibe combined with hotels. I do believe Hard Rock's select service brand Reverb is trying to do just that. They were the first ones in the market, at least announcing it, not practically opening with it, with like the front desk being also the place where you can get your coffee and some snacks. And then there's some rooms that you could rent to work in and all of that kind of stuff. And then it transitions more to a social party atmosphere in the evenings. There's just remember the name. Hotel Zoku, Z-O-K-U in Amsterdam. We're going to the first Saturday with this type of concept. I freaking love this hotel. Maybe it's because I was stoned in Amsterdam. I don't know which. Probably a little of both. But what I will say is that it was a nice space that reconcepted what a room could look like. And even though it was a small space, the bed was up on a loft, and underneath it was the bathrooms. But what that did was it saved space so you could have a meeting in your room, and I could have another person in there. And if that person happened to be female, we wouldn't have that weird thing. There's a bed there, and we're in a room, and it just didn't feel that way, right? Then you could go upstairs to the top floor. In the morning, it was a coffee lounge. Then in the afternoon, they served a buffet lunch for like $20 US or something like that. And then in the evening, it transitioned to happy hour and dinner, all very seamlessly, all while giving people the opportunity for monthly subscriptions to work out of there, hourly, daily, whatever that might be. They had specialty rooms. They had I think they called it it was a room based on Walt Disney, but it was really like a creativity suite, right? Go and they give you the tools to be creative and rethink things. And each of these rooms have like different themes in that. So you're giving people a reason to want to work and live and spend that go beyond what we know the traditional hotel to be. So a lot of opportunities out there for some great creative people that could bring in that younger audience that's more flexible with the way they want to live their lives today. That's what I'm very excited about. Anything else? Yeah, it's 4:53, right?
Yeah, I think there's, is it ready outside? You think? Okay. So, as we always do at HSMAI, so we always like to work in a cocktail every now and then, right? You know, we typical. So, I'll just take this moment to thank Glenn.
Thank you.
And I think out in the back, there's going to be cocktails. We could hang out for a few minutes here and have a drink, and then you can take off. But thank you very much for joining us.
Or any thoughts or something like that, just approach me. I got some cards. I'll give it to you. And, you know, we can talk another day or over cocktail. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.